My goal after the end of this talk is to give you guys so much stuff that you can do that it does seem like a lot of work. The cool thing is you don't have to do like 80% of it. You just do 10 to 20% of everything I'm talking about. It will work really, really well for you. You don't have to do all of it. I'm just giving you guys like, because there's definitely some people in here that like want to know like the full like A to Z. So I'm kind of giving you that, right? If you just got up into some DJ booths and then did all your other normal cold approaching. The cool thing about all the stuff I'm teaching you guys is that you could do any amount of it and still do what you're already doing, and you're just gonna get hotter girls. That's the cool part about it. Like, that's why it's funny when I, like, every once in a while I get these heated debates about social circle game, and I'm like, dude, like, to be honest, I probably cold approach more than you, like, the guy who's talking to me. I'm like, I probably cold approach more than you, and I'm just saying that social circle is better because you're not doing nearly enough of anything, right? Or he'll argue me that, like, my indirect style isn't sexual enough, and I'm like, her titty's out. You opened to direct, and now you're in commonality phase. You're in like C2, and I'm sucking on her titty. So, I mean, you tell me what's more sexual, right? So, you know, there's this thing that you gotta understand. I mean, I'm gonna wrap up your question with this. You employ any of these techniques, even just one of them, it's just gonna make your regular game better, right? I'm not saying it's this either or. It meshes together very, very nicely. You could even take the stuff I'm saying and just cold approach now at Live and always be able to get in for free. You could cold approach now at Warwick in LA, always get in for free.
Throw it into the mix.
Just literally throw it in the mix. Or you could take it to the next level, and you could never cold approach another girl in the rest of your life and have girls just being sent over to your house. My buddy Michael, remember Michael? He had a couple videos with me and Owen. I mean, he plays video games all day, and his girl's just sent over to his house. Like, he's got his door unlocked. He just plays video games, and girls, like, stunning girls, I mean, 9s and 10s, will just come over to his house, and then he'll fuck, and then they leave. He'll fuck, and then they leave. He just, like, he'll pause his video game to go fuck them. He's like addicted. I don't really play video games, I don't really understand it, but he's just addicted to video games. He's taken this to like a very extreme level, right? I mean, he walks into a nightclub, there's 40 girls with him, 30 girls maybe, all wearing matching outfits. I recorded this product 2.5 years ago, way before I was actually with RSD, but I didn't really have the technology back then to do it. I didn't really have the know-how. So I saw it about 6 months ago. I knew I wanted to release it because I've been teaching these concepts live for at least 4 years, to the point where sometimes I'd actually go and live in a guy's city and I would do all this for him without him actually opening one set. I would just build his social circle. I took on 6 to 8 clients a year before I was with RSD, and I would just build them that social circle in that city. It was fun for me because I basically got paid to game, and I didn't really love teaching back then. I just kind of wanted to game. So it's kind of like a good way for me to not have to go back to writing software and still kind of perfect the social circle building stuff. So it's cool, but you know, I've been friends with Owen for basically that entire time, just kind of doing my own pickup business along the way. And we've basically found a really good agreement where I could record this stuff and get it out to you guys. So the stuff I'm going to tell you, some of it's already in the product. The product's already complete. But I decided for the next several weeks, every Saturday of boot camp, I'm going to record kind of some additional content, see if there's anything else I want to get out there, and kind of give you guys some, you know, kind of, I guess it's what, 50% extra time, I guess, on the hot seat. So that'd be kind of cool, I think, right? Sweet. If we have time, I'm going to go through some hot seat footage that is all social circle hot seat based. I have open to close hot seat. I've open to close social circle footage. I have open to close threesome with my girl. I have open to close threesome with no girl, just me. I have like basically every combination you can kind of think of within a social circle setting. I think one of the big things I think you'll find is that a lot of guys who are apprehensive to an indirect style of game or social circle style of game is they feel like it might be slower, or it puts them in friend zone, or it kind of gives them a situation that they already didn't really want. And something that I think is beneficial to look at the footage is it gives you a really good idea of how that's just not true. I definitely would say, I wrote a couple RSD Nation posts early this morning about it. I would definitely say that my game is probably the most sexual in RSD right now. Maybe not the most intense. I think Tyler definitely would get that award. He's definitely the most intense. In terms of just like sexual deviancy though, I don't think anybody else in RSD at this point in their life is at that point that I am. So I think that that kind of gives you a good understanding of where I'm coming from. Anybody have any questions about anything social circle related yet before we get started? Completely. So I'm going to give you a few like high-level overviews of my version of social circle game, and then I'm also give you some really brass tacks, specific, tangible things you could do with the next few hours of leaving today, basically. Because I think it's kind of a waste of time. I'm the opposite of the Glenn type coach. I'm on a long journey to be spiritual, but I think it's a little bit longer journey for me than most people. So all the advice that I give is very feet on the ground, brass tacks, tangible. By the end of the day, you'll have at least 15 to 20 specific things you go do tonight. Imagine you have no social circle at all. You could just start those things right away. So I think it'll be beneficial. I think the biggest challenge for me in creating this is making myself kind of relatable, because every time I post anything at all, I get all these comments of Luke bragging, Luke boasting, and then, I mean, obviously it's the guys that are kind of, there's a funny quote, which is, you raised your son really well if he grew up to make YouTube videos, and then you grew up to fail as a parent if your son ends up making YouTube comments on YouTube videos, right? Because the comment section is just like the most just the most disastrous place ever on YouTube video comments. It's crazy, these people that live on there. It's so funny. And there's no like weight system to know if anybody's sane or not, so like you just kind of take it all as if it's one. But anyway, the point is, I want to really express that social circle game can be very malleable for whatever you want it to be. It's very malleable in that I've used it in my work setting to climb work ladders a lot quicker than I see other people who just put their nose to the grindstone and work hard. Especially if you put the social circle processes in place, then if you are already a hard worker, you're going to get a much higher yield for your effort. That's really the mission statement of my entire way of life, my entire way of games. That for me, I don't mind working really hard. I don't mind putting a lot of effort into something, but I want to have a very high yield at the end of it. I don't want to just beat my head against the wall. I don't want to feel like I don't know if I'm any better this week than I was last week. So the way this all started is I took my first boot camp about 8 years ago. I took the workshop just as a student. I was writing software, and I saw on the Sunday of that program, I got my first number close with the help of the coach, right? And just that one number close, it was my first number close ever, and I was like, this is something that I want to pursue. This is something that's interesting to me. But very quickly I realized that I was just wasting my time. Very quickly I realized that every cold approach that didn't land in a lay was just kind of wasted time, because a game is not the zero-sum kind of game, right? You do really well on a girl right now. The girl you're going to meet an hour from now has no idea that you did well, right? Which is kind of obvious. But in our minds, we kind of trick ourselves. Do you guys ever like go on a kind of a streak in a night where you do really, really well with, when I say well, I mean you get to kind of mid-game, a lot of girls are laughing, you get a couple makeouts, and all of a sudden one girl just blows you off and the night just kind of comes to a screeching halt. The reason why that happens is because you're almost at like an elevated level of state, right? You're almost too pumped up, but then the girl that you're actually hitting on, she has no idea that you just did 5 really funny banter lines that you just made out with this other girl, right? Because you're starting from scratch with every new girl. And it sounds really obvious, but it's very difficult sometimes to kind of fight our brain when we're in that moment. Another thing that I realized is that there's just so much time that's wasted by doing typical beast mode pickup. And you only realize that if you've been in game a little while. If you're new to game, you get kind of excited by the over-sexualized beast mode kind of game, right? Has anybody been there where, you kind of first realize that it's okay to hand of God some girls and Kino escalate, and then the claw, and the first few times that works really well, you get really excited, right? Because you're like, wait, this is something I've never really thought I could do before, and now all of a sudden, there's no harm at all. The problem is I want you guys to realize where this fork in the road kind of happens. The fork in the road happens where you decide you're getting results despite your game, not because of your game. And that's what happens with a lot of physical escalation. Now, when you're employing these social circle tactics I'm going to show you, you can pretty much still physically escalate, but you're doing it from a much different frame than this romantic concept of you actually trying to pick up that girl. I think you were the one that had the question about the day twos, right? At the free tour? Yeah. So that question kind of brings up a lot of my initial points and a lot of the introduction concepts that I want to talk about. That whole concept of putting the pressure on the girl to make the host say no. The whole concept of you go up, you escalate really aggressively, you have a lot of presence, you go really direct, right? I'm just giving you kind of the stereotypical direct, aggressive kind of pickup artist kind of move, right? If you are somebody who's a complete beginner and you're not really getting very much success yet, that's not going to be your most effective move, because you're not going to be able to know and pinpoint exactly what you're doing well and what you're doing incorrectly. The only way to truly get out of your head is to get in your head for a little while and be analytical about what you're doing and then break it down from there. If you don't know how well you're doing each week, if you're doing better or worse, then you're kind of just going to be left stranded. Any of you guys kind of go game months at a time and not really know kind of really what you're doing or where your roadmap is? Is anybody there just kind of still looking for a roadmap? Yeah. The problem with that is that I see guys gaming for years at a time and still not have that roadmap. They still don't really know exactly where they're headed in the seduction process, either in their night or with that girl. And I see that because I'll see guys come up to me at 1:50, 2 a.m. and they're kind of excited as if they're starting the night all over again. And I'll see them kind of start their opens at 1:50, and they probably open throughout the night. This happened several times while we were on program. A couple guys came up to me and they're asking me about different types of openers, or they're asking me what venues we went to, and it was kind of an interesting situation because at that point, you should still be in a set. You should be locked into an interaction, even if it's a terrible interaction. Even if it's a set that looks like it's not going to go very well at all. You don't really want to keep pressing that reset button unless you're on a boot camp like Future over here, right? Because if you're on a boot camp, the goal is to get as much volume in as possible because it's a compressed amount of time. But if you are in a city for 3 days or longer, right? If you're in the city, if you live here, understand that every time you go out, every set you open can just build on itself to then allow yourself to do less work in the future. And that's really what this comes down to, is game at the end of the day really should be about leverage. Any of you guys own your own business? Or any sort of entrepreneurial efforts at all, right? It's interesting. Imagine if you took the same kind of lack of process and just threw caution to the wind in your business as you do in game, right? This whole just kind of feel it, just go by gut instinct. Your business would never really go that well. Your business has to be unemotional. Your business has to be just this process that runs, unless you're in some sort of extremely creative industry, right? Your business has to have very strict things that kind of occur, right? If you don't have those things in place with your game life, you're going to end up just kind of flailing. It's funny to see you in here because you're going to have a lot of, because you worked with Adam a lot, right? Yeah. And Jason a little bit, Alex? Yeah. So you're going to hear a lot of similarities because Adam and I came up with this entourage game, which is funny because Jim, he even came up with that way before I did. He was on the program, which is kind of funny, which is kind of like the start of my social circle building, which is essentially you start from a place of you go out by yourself, or you go out with your wingman. Eventually, the end target, the end goal here is you want to be going out with as many women as possible with as few guys as possible, because that alone is going to build the attraction. Who here saw my crazy, weird Snapchat from Sunday night? Anybody? Yeah, cool. Have you seen anything more graphic than that or quicker than that on Snapchat?
Oh, Luke, what was your Snapchat?
Yeah, it's LukeGerhard, Luke Gerhard. The reason I keep mentioning my Snapchat is people talk about in-field footage, but Snap is about as close to live footage as you can get without actually putting a Facebook Live up, right? Which would be kind of interesting, but it's still a little bit glitchy. The Snap works pretty well. What I want to mention about the Snap is that's pretty much the entire interaction was on my Snapchat. The reason I mention it is you don't have to do that much in game, right? You know how Julian talks about it's more about who you are and how you be rather than getting rid of the blockages rather than all the different steps you take. What I'm here to add on top of that is if you can take just a few key steps to increase your status, then what's going to end up happening is you don't have to do almost any of the game concepts that you've been learning, and all of the mindset shifts will just kind of take place without you trying to get them. A mindset shift that I'm talking about is abundant mentality, for example, right? Abundant mentality, it's something we can all agree is a good thing, right? But it's just very vague. How do you just go get an abundant mentality without a big group of girls, without having an abundance? It's very difficult to just kind of pretend that or fake it till you make it, right? At the end of the day, that's a very challenging task. But what you're going to find is when you do the social circle tactics I'm talking about, we're going to do a few different drills, I'm going to show you some footage. When you do some of this stuff, you're going to have the abundant mentality every time you walk in the nightclub, and every time you walk into the club, you're always going to be in perfect state, right? State to me is something that I never let I have a 30-day program in Vegas, and we have about 15 to 20 guys every month come through it. State is something I never let them talk about, because the first day, I'll usually see a couple guys spend about an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours working on their state. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're just kind of running around doing mass opens. They're kind of running around without really having any sort of plan. And your plan can be faulty. You don't have to have the perfect plan, but you have to go through it with some sort of motion if you want to build on your success. Really, the point of social circle game is to increase your success and decrease your effort. That's going to be the theme that I'm covering all day today, right? Increase that leverage. To the point where you don't have to go on more than one date per month, and you'll still have 5 to 15 girls in your life, instead of having to go on day 2 after day 2 after day 2, right? Which if you're really new, that seems like a quality problem, to go on a bunch of day 2s all of a sudden. But very, very quickly, once you realize how to number close, and you just realize that's just a couple little tricks to get that number, what ends up happening is you end up not really even be able to go on enough dates because you don't have enough time because you're too busy doing other things, kind of like what you guys talked about with the goals a couple nights ago with Owen, right? So what I want to show you is how you can actually day 2 all the girls that you meet in a either weekly or monthly period. I like to do weekly, and I like to pick Thursday. So the reason why you want to take a good look at social circle game really is because it will decrease your time. The quality of girl will increase by at least 2 points almost immediately. If you just tell yourself, hey, for at least a couple weeks, you're not, 2 weeks, that's all I ask. You're not going to do any cold approach lays directly. The quality of girl will just skyrocket. It really will. Anybody have any questions about that so far? Cool. Go for it.
What if you haven't even gotten to the point where you're getting cold approach plays?
Perfect. Then I've caught you at ahead of the curve. Yeah. Raise your hand if you're not at the point where you're getting cold approach lays yet. Any?
Like at all or like sporadically?
Extremely sporadically or not at all. Like super inconsistent. Okay, raise your hand if you think you're inconsistent with your lays. Let's put it that way, because that's a better word for it, right? Cool. Who in here thinks they already have a reasonable social circle? Not necessarily like full of hotties, but like you have friends, you have social circle, you know people when you go out, right? Okay. So you said you have a reasonable social circle, right?
When it's in my social circle, I do well, but I do not have a.
So when you do well, are you closing? Are you closing from the social circle, or is it?
Oh, yeah, I sleep like when I was at work. I would be sleeping with girls at my work.
Yeah. Where is he at? So are you consistent overall? If you include that, and you're just inconsistent with the cold approach, or?
I'm an epic fail. Cold approach.
Yeah.
But
So how many lays from social circle do you have?
right now I'm not working at the same place, so it's dropping.
His lead pool fell off. Yeah. So from your work, how many girls did you fuck from your work? Just so we have something to go with.
4.
Okay. So it's still not like a substantial amount, right? Cool. So the reason I want to talk about this, right, is that I want to show you how you can leverage really, really simple things so that cold approach almost seems like a waste of time. So the cold approach ends up becoming like a bar trick, that you cold approach just because it's fun to do with your buddies. It's like a hobby, right? Really what you have to do is you have to identify what your real goal is, right? You have to identify what type of girl are you after, right? So you like, what type of girl are you after? Yeah, you right here.
Me?
Yeah. I feel like you have some confident goals with women.
Dude, I don't know what the hell I want. That changes every time I ask myself that question. Right now, I'm actually working on this girl in my social circle, and she's kind of seeing somebody, but we hang out all the time. We've made out a couple times, it's like, I don't know. But I still go out, and I'm still single, and, I had a blast last night, but I don't really have an objective goal right now.
Yeah. Who does have an objective goal? Raise your hand. Cool. About half the room then, a little less than half. Cool. Jared, what's yours?
It's definitely the upper echelon of girls that, frankly, it doesn't matter how good your game is, those super 10 hotties, for lack of a better term, it's just not really going to work cold approaching them because they don't trust you. They're always going to be surrounded with a lot of other girls, usually a lot of other guys. And so it's kind of like, I was saying on Thursday, those girls, they're kind of just untouchable unless you're in their social circle in the first place. So definitely.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head there, right? I think what a lot of people who aren't in your position, who haven't quite realized that yet, I think they don't quite understand that. I think a lot of guys who are kind of new think, because they see a couple cool videos of cold approach, think that what you just said isn't true. I think they think that cold approach will just get them any girl if they just do it hard enough or well enough. Anybody see that, or anybody think that? Right? Yeah, and what you find is that's just a trap. It just doesn't work that way. There's a bit of pickup that you have to. There's a bit of a Disney. You know how we talk about Disney fairy tale land, right? With mainstream, there's a bit of a pickup Disneyland, right? Which we think that there's certain. You hear one concept that you resonate with, and all of a sudden you run with it. You think that this is like the holy grail to solve all your problems, and you see a couple little bits of proof that it works, right? With a cold approach, infield or a hot seat or something, and you think that all of a sudden we think that, because I've done this too, where I think that one thing is going to work like that all the time. And then what ends up happening is the more you game and the more years you put into this, the more you realize you just can't get 9s and 10s without social circle game. It just doesn't happen, purely because you can't get access to them. You can't see them. It just doesn't really work that way. You might have kind of like spontaneous little bursts of it where you can see them once in a while, but there's nothing consistent with it, right?
Exactly.
So you're after the hottest girl you can possibly go after.
Correct.
Cool. Who in here is too new to be in that mentality? To think that they're just a little bit too new to actually try to go after 9s and 10s right now? They're just trying to get experience. Yeah. Cool. Probably a little bit more even than that. What I want to show you guys, right, is that we're gonna use Jarrett as a case study, and we're gonna show you how you can just bypass this whole like early stage learning and this like mid-level learning to just go straight to going after the types of girls that you're trying to go after. You don't really have to build up and go. I did a talk in San Francisco several months ago, and you don't have to acknowledge the ugly girls. You don't have to fuck your way up. You really don't, right? It's just a fact, right? I mean,
You know what's funny? Before I got into game though, like that's the thing that like people like they literally say that they're like, yeah, well you started off with ugly girls and then you'll get hotter and hotter.
Because that's what most people do, right? And that can work. But I'm not gonna take a bunch of fucking pickup courses, give up a career in tech, give up a bunch of other things, right? To then like fuck my way up a fatty circle, right? Like I'm not gonna like there's just no like that's not really the point, right?
I think that some guys like have to do that to give themselves permission to even get the 9s or 10s. You know?
I agree, and I will also add to that I think a lot of guys just don't know that it's possible, right? There's a certain bit where before you put in that effort, or you put in that first step, there's a bit of buy-in you have to put into knowing that what you're about to do has some chance of working, right? And when you fuck your way up, exactly, there has to be this strong faith or belief that what you're about to do is going to work. And if you don't have that, you can just kind of spin your wheels, or it might not work. Or let's say you have a decent amount of success, you're getting like 6s to 8s or a 9 here and there, right? And or at least a 10 in your city or whatever, right? And when that ends up happening, you can kind of just spin yourself out or go into these like paths where you just kind of get a bunch of, kind of like what you were saying, right? Where you get the day 2s, but you're not really quite closing us. And I'm sure you're closing plenty. Like I can just tell from you that you're not exactly, bad off with women. But at the same time, I feel like it can just kind of feel like you're bashing your head against a wall sometimes. If you get to that point where it's kind of frustrating too, because your buddies will all look at you and be like, wait, you're closing girls that are hotter than I am. You don't have approach anxiety, but you're like, wait, but I know that I should be doing better than this, right? Does that make sense? If you're not hooking up with girls that are hotter than you are, then you're wasting your time in game, right? And it's crazy how often I'll see a guy who's hooking up with girls that are less attractive than him that are still okay, but I'm like looking at a dude who's in shape, makes good money, dresses well, and I'm like, dude, you should be like at minimum set, like most of the guys in this room, you should be fucking minimum 7s, just because most of you guys are 6s or 7s, right? If you're gonna like look at it on like a 10, like if 10 is like peak, there you go. Think about it, right? Yeah. I didn't know that would get you riled up, right? Future just stormed out of the room, right? Huh? There you go. You know what's funny about these 10-point scales, right? And as silly as it is to like put people on these 10-point scales, it's these random units of measure we kind of have to for conversation purposes, right? And it's just really funny because nobody looks at 5 as the median, right? Like when you rate a girl, like that's what I mean. Like, and by the way, like when I said 6s and 7s, I was being nice because no one looks at 5 as the median, right? Like it's just not like.
Yeah, like what's a 1? Yeah, it's
this. Like you don't see a 1. Like a 1 has 1 leg, right? Exactly. Yeah. So 5 is not the median, right? So if the goal, so what I want to go show you guys, right, is you don't have to go for the screening girls. You don't have to just fuck your way through these girls up and down the street and then eventually climb your way up. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to spend 2-3 years in game, and you're just going to increase your lay count. You get like 30 to 40 girls. You'll pound them out. But then what ends up happening is you're not actually even close to getting those 9 or 10 types of girls because you're not even in the same vicinity. You're just not even in the same area, right? Because dramatically, I think traditional pickup concepts for a lot of guys in this room. Do you understand? A lot of these pickup concepts were made for guys that were less cool than you guys are just starting out. You guys ever feel that way? Like there's certain, like you can understand, like I've been to boot camps for 8 years. When I first taught my boot camp, like it was so much more difficult than teaching boot camp now. Like the guys were just completely, just way worse off than you guys, and what they were expected is way higher. Like every guy wanted to fuck on the first night. Like whether he was a virgin at 30, 35 years old, he still wanted to fuck on the first night. Because he thought like he'd pay. It's like almost like you buy a treadmill, you think that you're just getting in shape. Like people thought they'd like pay the deposit, or is that just, people pay the thing on the boot camp, right? And they just thought they were gonna get those results, right? Yeah, so like a pivot should be the first word in pickup that you should ever learn. They say looks don't matter, money doesn't matter? That shit matters a hell of a lot. Like I mean, it matters a lot, right? I mean, it's no surprise that like, I'm gonna use Dan Blazerian's name a lot throughout this just because he's like kind of the pinnacle of like where social circle game really is, right? I don't think I really have to like argue that with anybody. It's no wonder that he's rich and ripped, right? Like, sorry, like there's plenty of guys who don't have, I mean, he kind of has like every tick in it, right? It works. But that doesn't mean that you have to be those things, right? Clearly, I'm kind of an example of that, right? I mean, if you look at me on Facebook, I'm like 95 pounds lighter. So the problem is that my social circle got too big, and I had too many high-end clients. So like I was able to like have a pretty good pickup business with zero marketing for 5-7 years, right? And I was able to fuck girls that were hotter and hotter each year. And eventually I was just like, well, this is fun. Let's just party as hard as these people in my social circle. So I kind of got caught up in it, right? So then I dated a girl, then broke up with a girl, and then gained the weight back, up and down, kind of yo-yoed. And then along the process though, my whole thing is if I'm going to learn something, I'm going to learn it fully. One thing I knew is this, right? I was a terrible software programmer. Terrible. I learned it all on my own. But I got a software degree in high school, and I got a full-time job at like 17 years old writing software for a big tech company, right? But I was a terrible coder. I had no idea what I was doing. I just would work really hard, beat my head up against the fucking keyboard, and work like 60 hours a week and just tell them I'm working 40, and they would just think I was like an average coder. But it was just perfect for me because it was 17, 18 years old. They thought I was a lot older. It was a cool little setup, right? So for me, I always had the end in mind. When I decided to write software, I just wanted to get off my dairy farm in Wisconsin, go to a city where there were girls, and I didn't know it was called Social Circle Game, but I just wanted to build a social circle around me where I knew that no matter if I had a bad day, because I grew up really depressed, right? Anybody go through depression or anxiety? I mean, we've got to at least be half the room, right? I'm not sitting here being like, I had this horrible depression, right? But just enough for it to actually matter. And I realized that I wanted to be able to control it. I wanted to control the women in my life. I want to be able to control everything in my life. If I'm going to put effort into it, I want to be able to control it. And not in this like obsessive kind of way, but I want to have options. So that's one reason why we're going to talk about the whole girl thing, right? You don't have to just fuck your way up. You can pick exactly what your ideal girl is, right? My ideal girl is, Jessica Alba in her prime, Eva Longoria. My ideal is Selma Hayek in her prime, right? I want exactly that type of girl. At the end of today's talk, I want you guys to completely decide what type of girl it is, and it can change, right? It's like a business plan. If you don't have a business plan to start out with, a marketing mix, you're not gonna go very far usually, right? But it can change all the time. So, like what you just mentioned, right? I start with looks because if I don't have looks on point, then I'm just not gonna be interested in the personality, right? Because here's the thing, right? You go out and you wanna go meet a bunch of people. How do you organize it? How do you structure it? It's very easy to just go out and meet a bunch of random bouncers. But then what do you do with it, right? You need a system in place on when you contact these people, what you do with them. And you don't need to live by this system for very long, but you have to get started with something. Okay, so what I do is I have a very relatable, very tangible amount of people that you should meet each night that you go out, and what point of contact you should have with them, and then how often you should contact them. I actually have infield of me meeting people randomly, and then building it up to the point where they're inviting me to birthday parties, they're inviting me to Maximum parties, Playboy parties. It's like I just put up a camera while I'm like on the phone with these people, and then building it up from there. Because I think that's the biggest challenge a lot of times. It's very easy to go get a bouncer's name, right? It's very easy to go get a cocktail waitress's name, right? But how do you build that up into something real? I'll show you, by the end of today's talk, you'll know how to get 100% of cocktail waitresses' phone numbers, 100% of bartenders' phone numbers. Scottsdale, the hottest girls I've seen were cocktail waitresses and bartenders, right? Dan Bilzerian's main girl I bumped into last night, and we go wakeboarding all the time together. I find her to be literally maybe the number one hottest girl that's not my type of girl. I think she's absolutely stunning. She works at one of the bars that we go to, right? All the bar area that you guys have here. And I bumped into her, and it was really funny because she was in the cocktail outfit. I was like, who's that fucking girl? What the fuck? Because you guys have hot girls, but you also have a lot of like typical kind of a little above average girls. There's like, your bars get packed here. Really, really packed. So what was interesting is I saw her and I was like, man, I just want to teach these guys just how to get laid with these cocktail waitresses and bartenders. Because here's the thing, like, yeah, personality matters, but if you don't have the looks, if you don't have the attraction to the girl based on her looks, then you're not going to go any further than that, right? So what ends up happening is a lot of guys use this whole personality thing as a way to not actually hit on hot girls. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but I've seen this a lot, where guys will be like, oh, but what's her personality like? I want to tell them, well, where's the hole on a personality? Like, how do you fuck a personality? But that's not what I tell them. What I actually tell them, right? That's what I want to say. That's not what I say, though. What I want to say, though, is if you can't start with finding out the personality and then work your way backwards, then decide on the looks thing, right? We just have to filter it all out, right? You have to value scan. If you're going to live your life, you have to value scan, but in a way that doesn't affect you negatively. Do you understand? You have to be very careful about. Owen talks about this. How every pickup concept has two sides of the coin. And it's almost an opposite effect as well. You know how people say don't value scan, don't judge people based on the different things they can do for you. I judge people based on what I can do for them, and then I sort that out later. It's like when I tip people. I tip people like 25 to 50% everywhere, right? But I also, I mean, which sounds great. Like, if I tip 50% even in Scottsdale here on anything, on water, on drinks, or on food, or whatever, right? The reason why is that tipping 50% got me unlimited bottles in Vegas, unlimited bottles in Miami, unlimited bottles in New York, right? I don't even care. Like 90% of the time, I don't drink one sip of alcohol. At Hyde, I didn't have any alcohol at the table. The Snapchat party that I had the other night, right? I didn't have one sip of alcohol at that table, but the bill came out to $11,500, and then they waived it. All because I went in and tipped a bunch of times on random little drinks ahead of time, and then built it up from there, right? But a lot of guys don't want to do that. They don't want to see that the fact that, hey, you do have to value scan, you do have to filter certain things because you only have so much time in the day, right? Totally, because nothing's for free, right? So I'm buying something with that. I mean, I'm not going to tip 2, I'm going to tip 5, right? But I'm buying something with that $5. I don't have the money to actually tip as much as I do. I literally look at it like it's a business expense, like I'm getting something out of it. But I go so far to the point. So I'm going to tell you guys things that you guys can do, and I'm also going to tell you things that are a little bit crazy that I do. And if you have the balls or you have the gregariousness to follow through on it, you can go for it. But so one of those simple things that I do, for example, is every night I go out to a nightclub, and I'm in nightclubs 7 days a week, right? Every night I go out to a club, I buy a drink for some guy that I think makes a lot more money than me. That's my only rule for it. That adds up to a lot of money, right? I can kind of afford that, but if it didn't come back on me, I couldn't afford it. Like if it was just random, if I was just trying to like spend it, it definitely wouldn't. I'm expecting that to come back on me in a lot of ways, right? The cool thing is it's kind of like, you guys know how like VC money works, right? You guys know how venture capital works, right? It's super simple. You know, it's a very bad bet for the VC company, right? They're looking for that one home run to kind of pay for all the bad companies, right? All the failures. They're looking for they're looking for every Chris Sacca, there's a bunch of guys on the street corner on Market Street in San Francisco. Market Street's like this, you know, Market Street. It's like this zombie fucking apocalypse in San Francisco, right? You really want to understand this. When I'm tipping that $5, right? I'm specifically getting an interaction out of it, right? You don't have to tip the $5 either. There's a lot of other ways you can do it. Like if you just are dead broke, you can build it up from this. But this has gotten me significant. Like I own part of a makeup store in Vegas. I know nothing about makeup. I barely ever go to the store, right? The money I get from it, the dividends are like a few $100s a month or something. Like it's so few points. It's like nothing, right? But the point is, I can go in and bring any girl and have her makeup. It's like one of those places where they can actually have their whole makeup done. So I'll tell girls on dates, I'll have like makeup parties where I'll tell girls, hey, I'm gonna take you on this date, but you have to do me a favor. And the girl's like, what? And I go, you can't put any makeup on the date or it's not gonna happen, I'm gonna kick you out. And she's like, what? And like almost, like I get a lot of pushback on that. I get a lot of girls fighting me on that. They're like, no, I probably haven't done this date, to be honest, for like 6 months, but because my thing now is like orgies and a lot of threesomes, but back then it was like, yeah, when I was doing the day 2 thing like heavily, there's like 15 chairs in this makeup store. It's in Mandalay Bay. And I literally just tipped a few dollars, bought the drink for the guy, hit on his girl. 2 months later, 3 months later, I own part of his business. Like it almost sounds unbelievable. Like it sounds crazy. Any of you come to Vegas, it's in my product and I'll introduce you to the guy in the store. He's literally interviewing about how I met him to show you guys how you can meet your own business connections like that. If I actually cared more about that business or had more time, I could kind of negotiate a little bit more out of that, right, in some other deals. But the point is this, I really want you guys to understand, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get these 9s or 10s, but you have to do something, right? That's kind of a really, really big key that a lot of guys fail to understand. Looks don't matter, money doesn't matter, you don't have to gain, you don't have to be manipulative, you don't have to have social proof, but eventually you run out of stuff to do. You have to have something, right? You have to do something. And my thing is massive status and friends that will do anything for me, to the point where like even people who don't really like me that are in my life will do a lot for me, and girls see that and then they just wonder who I am and like what I'm like. I have girls that I'll date for 1 year to 2 years, and they'll think I'm like Batman or something. They'll be like, wait, like they'll come to me and it's confusing because I'm just honestly being like, yeah, this is me, and they'll be like, wait, but no, there's more later. There's something to it. Like what's going on here? Just because there'll be a new guy that like randomly bumps into us that's like, holy fuck, like that's just this complete admiration when we're just walking through the mall.
It is social proof though.
It's massive social proof. I mean, social proof is the number one thing you should ever do in pickup, period. If there's one thing if there's only one other thing I could have other than social proof, it'd be pre-selection. Right? Pre-selection is like social proof but of women, basically, right? Because usually these are things that are scientifically proven to pick up girls. The guys a lot smarter than me have come up with that. This is like, and very few things are actually like scientifically proven to build attraction, Like it's kind of rare. And instead of a bunch of like pickup jerk-offs that like sat down and masturbated in Hollywood and then came up with it, right? I mean, it paid off so much. I mean, financially it paid off because it probably gets me a few $1,000s a year. And I bought him in Vegas, drinks are like, what, $30? I bought him a $30 drink.
Throw down a bunch of money or
I threw down a $30 drink, and I aggressively hit on his girl.
and then he was but like
And I didn't see him though. I just saw, for a long time I was into, what do they call them, Sephardic girls? Where it's like, what is it, like Israeli Jews? Is that what it is? Oh, like olive skin. Yeah, dark Jewish girl, but not the Ashkenazi, like the dark Jewish, like tall, thin, and like that fucking angry like voice and accent, almost like Brazilian, kind of like they want to rip your fucking dick off. Like I was like, Vegas has a lot of these girls because they work in all the kiosks and all these stores, right? So I would just start railing through these girls to the point where I had a name in the Israeli community in Vegas for these guys. And the Surrender, this club at the Encore, it used to be amazing. Now it's kind of shitty, but they all used to go here. It's this big Jewish, Israeli, Hebrew-speaking troupe. Right? Anybody here speak Hebrew? Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. So they gave me a nickname, and the nickname was Ani Ganuf. Right? So after a long time, it's not really a nickname, but they gave me a slogan, I guess, right? After a while, every time I'd see these guys, they'd be like, Ani Ganuf! Ani Ganuf! Right? And it basically means I'm crazy. I'm fucking crazy, right? It's kind of what it means. I don't know if it's the literal translation. That's kind of what they told me it means, right? So what I would do is every time I'd see these girls, they were so hot to me, I didn't even see the guys. I would just go straight up to these girls and I would hit on them. And all of a sudden I look down and they'd hold hands with each other, even if they're like family or friends. Like it's a very like touchy-feely culture, I guess, right? And I would see the hand. I'm like, oh shit, my bad, bro. Because I was like aggressively hitting on this girl. Like this is what I was doing, like super hard direct game. And then he just kind of laughed. He was like, oh, he just was amazed that I was willing to like hit on this girl with him just standing there. And it turns out he owns more kiosks in Vegas than anybody else at the time, than anybody else in Vegas. And he was about to then buy a bunch of stores. Well, I don't want to go too much in the business aspect of it unless you guys like are more curious about that. But basically, long story short, I just aggressively started hitting on the girl. I'm like, oh, that's cute, that's neat, that's really interesting. But I just started hitting on the girl. I'm like, all the one-liners, right? If you're brown, I'm down. Minority, all this. If you're like I'm white and bright, I'm just right. I just kept going, right, to hit on this girl. And he just kind of like laughed. I just kind of respected the fact that he like when I'm out with my girls, right, girls that I'm fucking, and I see a guy like kind of look at them, I go like this without the girl knowing. And I'll like try to hide behind something, right? Because why do you think?
Well, she's gonna get subconscious.
I just want to see what he's gonna do. And like I have a rule, like if you can, with the exception of like whatever my primary girl is at that moment, ever since I got into pickup, my whole rule was if you could take a girl that I'm picking, like if you see me in the field and you could take a girl from me, fucking do it. Just teach me how you did it later. Like I don't care. Like go show me. Like if you can do it, go for it. Like I'd love to see it. That's great. I don't mean to even be arrogant. Like I learned a lot of valuable game lessons because I lost a few of those in my first. I had some painful lessons my first few years because that was always my rule. I just want to get better. I didn't really give a shit, right? So that helped a lot. And then I'll explain the business route on that in a little bit here if you guys are curious about it. But the main thing for me is I realized he had the whole Dead Sea skin, the
Dead Sea mineral?
Dead Sea, like take care of your hands or whatever. So I was like, all right, well, do you guys do lashes too? Yeah. It's not like he said dead semen. Is that why you're laughing? Yeah. There you go. Well, who knows, right? Who knows what's in that shit? But anyway, the point was, I was like, hey, a light bulb came on in my head, which is, I don't want to spend money on makeup for girls. But, right, I don't want to spend money. Anybody you guys like begging to spend money on makeup for girls? It's fucking expensive. It's more expensive than their clothes.
It's like ridiculously.
It's really expensive, especially for the good shit, right? Yeah, you have a girlfriend, so you know.
Yeah.
So exactly. So, but like, could I afford makeup for girls? Yeah, I could afford like pretty much whatever makeup she wants, any makeup she wants. But I still don't want to do it, especially when I'm dating a lot of girls at one time. However, there's another batch of guys out there, right? It's called secretarrangements.com that will buy any amount of makeup that this girl wants. I mean, I'm joking about SA, but there's another group of guys that will just buy anything that these girls want, right? And guess what? If you were a girl, would you not take it? Of course. These 9s and 10s, right? The reason that they're 9s and 10s, and the reason why you don't actually see them, and why the hottest girl at Fi Def, whatever the fuck the club is, right? The hottest girl in there is not a 10 because the 10 is on a jet somewhere or in Mexico, right? Because she's so hot that she's just getting thrown all these offers at her that's where she is. And I'm not saying that to be negative that you can't get her, but what I am saying is this. There's somebody that is going to give her the makeup. There is somebody who is going to get her the high value area that she wants to be in, right? But guess what? What's cool about that? No one's doing that for the 4, 5, 6s, and 7s. You guys understand that? So I'll see you guys beat down the door. I'll see guys that are in better shape than me, taller than me, wealthier than me, running up and down the street doing game that I'm like, what are you doing? I wouldn't dirty my shoes to do this kind of, like what are you doing, bro? Like you just are too high value already to be doing this. And like, especially then hitting on girls that are like 7s, like at best. Like, what are you doing? Whereas instead, you pull out the little makeup trick like I just pulled, right? And every one of you have something like this that I can't do because you all know people that I don't know. You guys all have connections that I don't have. That's one reason why my social circle blueprint product is going to be the best thing that I've ever done, because I'm leveraging everyone else's social circle connections and we're going to arbitrage it between the group. The makeup thing, the light bulb went off the second he said that he's been getting a makeup store, because he didn't have it yet, right? But I saw something in him and I was like, oh, I saw something in him. I was like 22 at the time. It's like a long time. I saw something in this 28-year-old multimillionaire. Very funny. This degenerate pickup artist saw something in him. He was going to go far. So anyway, I saw something in this guy, right? And I was like, he's going to go really far. So let me bond with him and let me do all the tactics that I'm going to teach you here in about 30 minutes. The brass tacks, techniques of actually building this connection and getting him to want to take me under his wing, right? It's a huge strategy I have, the U Army, and then having them take you under their wing strategy. Which is cool too, because it creates leverage even in the process. You don't even have to do that much. You just let them help you and they're excited to help you and take you up. It's pretty cool. So anyway, with him, I was like, what if I could just take every girl on a date too to get her makeup done? How epic, like she'll give me all the credit. I'll bond with the girls who are doing like the lashes and all the makeup. It takes like 45 minutes to do it properly, right? What if I bond with the girl that's actually doing the makeup? The whole time, it's 45 minutes. I can go fuck off. I can get some work done. There's a Starbucks around the corner. I could go drink at -5, this crazy like ice bar thing. Right around the corner. I can do whatever I want to do. I could go game, pick up other girls. Well, the Israeli chick that I've already ruthlessly flirted with is qualifying the girl, asking her if she's good enough for me. She's literally like, oh, so how do you know Luke? Yeah? Yeah, you sure you're good enough for him? And then she's like doing the makeup. You sure? Which kind of lashes do you want? No. You're too pale for this. She's like breaking her rapport on the girl for me. And the first time I saw that, I just started laughing my ass off. I was like, this is fucking genius. And the whole time, like, there's our makeup store. It's called Liqueur. There's Liqueur branded champagne. There's a fuck room in the back. And like I was like, yo, can I put a mattress back here just so I can like rail these girls? He's like, yeah, sure, fuck, I need a move. I'm like, all right, I'm fucking crazy. I'm the crazy guy. Cool. And then there's literally just branded bottles of champagne. And then he's like, I barely own any of it. And I'm not somebody like I'm only gonna name drop or like talk about stuff if it helps something. Otherwise, I'm not really gonna do it. But he's like, no. Say you own the whole store. Say I work for you. Like he's got this accent. Say I work for you. I'm like, all right, you work for me, I'm the boss. But like he's got like this like $40,000 Breitling, he's like decked out perfectly tailored clothes, and I'll come in like sweats. I'm like, yeah, I'm the boss that just doesn't give a fuck. And then he's like, yeah, he's the boss. I work for every girl that walks past. It's just money, right? All from just a few little interactions. It makes cold approach, to be honest, just look silly. It's like, what am I like I want to do cold approach, right? That's why I love hanging out with Owen, because Owen's just a cold approach beast, and it forced me to do cold approach again, right? Because otherwise, cities like Vegas, Miami, LA, New York, Scottsdale, I mean, this is a perfect city for this, right? Any cold approach that you do for me is wasted time, because even if you do fuck that girl, you're now not going to fuck the 5 friends that you could have that are hotter than her anyway, with less effort, because she could have got them for you, right? The thing I want you to keep holding on to the fact is that it's easier to fuck that 9 with that fabricated makeup store, right? That fabricated status. And guess what? A couple of you guys probably have the money that you could just do it. If you do, I can show you how to spend that money a proper way, where it doesn't look like you're spending it, but you're still getting the awesome shit, right? I have like one client a month that's like, I don't care, I'll buy the makeup store. I'm like, well, I don't know if you know how much this thing is. And I'm like, no, I'll just buy it. I'm like, all right, well, we can't tell the girl this. We have to beat around the bush with it. It is, but you know what's interesting, right? For you, it's not that hard to do. Who thinks it's hard to bond with a high value guy? Anybody intimidated by high value guys? Usually it's like 25% of the room that's like intimidated by high value guys, right? From the little bit that you and I have talked, right? I mean, I know that you're a fairly high value guy, so it's not that difficult for you necessarily. But what's difficult for a guy who actually is above average in value, right, is to bond with that guy in a way that like isn't intimidating, right, but in a way where they're excited to take you under their wing. Does that make sense? You're giving value to each other. It's also, and even more than that, right? It's a race to see who can it's a race to see who can give more value to the other person first, right? Here's the thing. I don't want to say I don't want to look at them as different. I see where you're going with it, and I 50% agree with you, and I want to kind of add a couple nuances to it to kind of specify, because I like where you're going with it, if you don't mind. I look at them as super different than me. I look at everybody as different than me because I want to learn and I want to get to their level as quickly as possible. So if I look at them as, if I tell myself that, oh, we're all kind of the same, when you meet guys like that too, after you meet your first couple, you'll realize that the higher status the guy, the wealthier he is, the more famous he is, the more bitches he has, right? The cooler and more humble and nicer he is. The higher net worth the guy or the hotter the girl, like the nicest girl I've ever met was Paris Hilton. Like, you wouldn't really think that, right? The next, like, 10 girls that are on my hit list, right? The girls that are, makes it sound so bad. I can only say hit list after Rihanna's song came out. Then now I can say it, otherwise it sounded really bad. They're all huge celebrities that I'm going after. Well, 5 of them are huge celebrities, 5 of them are like music video girls, VMAs. That just was on the other day, right? The MTV VMAs. Yeah, what's the girl in that one, was it Tanya, Tanae? Fade. Is that her name? I don't know. In the gym, the hot dance move.
Oh, Tiana Taylor.
There you go, Tiana Taylor, there we go. He would be the one to know how to pronounce her name. Right? So the thing is this, when you tell yourself you're gonna go after these high value guys, these high value girls, these high status people, you understand that the higher status they are, right, the least intimidating they can be, because they're gonna be nicer to you, right? It's like you almost couldn't pay for their shit or introduce them to more girls if you try, because they'll tell you to stop, right? It's wild, okay? But they do put people in frames in their own life that you have to jump out of. You understand? Because you can fall into a frame of somebody who's just kind of a worker bee for them, right? If you're not careful. It's interesting because when you go out with girls you're already having sex with, right? When I go out and meet, I'll fuck a girl a few times. We go out and like hang out with her girlfriends. I'm super quiet. Like, unless we're gonna pound our girlfriends out, which is always my it's a goal and a rule that I have. I'm going to be really, really shy and kind of not awkward, but like, do people come up to me all the time and they ask me, "What's wrong?
Yeah.
What's wrong?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm good. What do you mean, what's wrong? I'm existing. I don't know. What do you want me to do? You want to put a quarter in me? You want me to start dancing? What do you want me?
I feel like you should smile.
Yeah. I'm like, I am smiling.
Yeah,
and I do like the Chandler smile. I'm like,
same shit.
like what do you mean? What do you want me to do? And they're like, oh, but and they always say that I feel like you're a different person when you're with me versus them. And I'm like, yeah, when I'm trying to be productive. What do you you don't really want me to be me right now. Like that's kind of what I say. I'm like,
But what is you? Like, because you're saying like you're introverted.
I'm introverted, but I have very extreme extroverted skills that I can do specifically, and then I'll stop. Yeah. Introverted means that you get your energy from being alone. Yeah. Extroverted means you gain your energy from being around other people. Right. That's really all the definition means. It doesn't mean, I can be louder than anybody. I've been arrested 3 times because of game. I've done some epic, crazy shit because of game. But
there's walls you broke, dude. Like, it didn't stop. At least for me.
Totally. No, completely.
Like,
but what I guess I want you to understand, is that you don't have to like become extroverted, but you can't be shy either. Right? Like all this horse shit I've heard about like you can be shy and still fuck hoes is like the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Like you can, but then you have to have even more status than what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like status beats everything. You use social proof and pre-selection to get status. Okay? Did anybody see my Snapchat before the orgy, the day before at the pool, by chance, when I was wearing the sailor hat? No. I'm going to provide all these Snapchats to you guys too at some point if you want, because I've saved them all. Who saw the sailor hat? Cool. So the sailor hat got me that orgy. Right? I don't want to just like, the reason I'm bringing up the Snapchat and all this stuff is because it sets stuff up. A little sailor hat got me to fuck 2 girls. Granted, I already fucked 1 girl, right? So it got me to fuck 3 new girls. I was probably going to fuck the 3rd one too. It got me to fuck the 2 for sure, 100%. Because I met them right after I left the DJ booth with the sailor hat. Because it's another situation where, like, what kind of guy, like nobody who was even buying bottles at that environment, it was a day club in Vegas, right? Nobody was allowed in the DJ booth. I go to the DJ booth, I ask them for a hat. He gives me a hat, and then I jump up and down, and then I snap it, and that's everything that you guys saw on the snap, right? That's literally what happened. And then all of a sudden, do anybody remember what happened the second that I did this? Remember what happened with the girl with the thong on? What happened?
She came right to you.
She came right to me, and this is all stuff. That's why I kind of want this back and forth, because if I'm just talking about it, it doesn't seem as relatable. It doesn't seem like it just, to be honest, it doesn't seem like there's enough stuff happening, right? It just doesn't seem like there's enough gears moving. But what happened? She came up to me, she started like licking my face, right? And then she like went like this with her titties, right? And then I just looked at her, I was just like, and I went over here, right? And then I grabbed, and then huh?
You hadn't talked to that girl before, had you?
That was the open. No. That's why I try to get as many snaps. Like if I'm gonna snap, it's gonna be like, I don't snap every day, but when I snap, it's like the full set. as much of it as possible. The cool thing about that whole thing is Alex was filming in field the whole day, like you got on the camera, right? So I have the snap, but I also have the proper RSD style hidden camera of the whole thing as well. So my goal is to do picture in picture when I released it, so that you can see like what I was doing at the time. Well, you can actually see the typical RSD style video to actually really get a good angle of like what was I doing, so you can duplicate it. There's tons of game concepts that work really well for me that I'm not going to teach you guys because they're not duplicatable. They just work well for me because it's my personality. I'm only going to teach you stuff that's duplicatable that you can actually go do tonight or tomorrow, right? So with the hat thing, right? Me just going to that DJ booth, then wearing that hat, and then walking out of the DJ booth, all of a sudden these other two girls that I found way hotter just came right up to me, right? And then just started dancing with me. Now I also had pre-selection because I was with two girls that I was getting to make out with each other in front of them. Right? Which is it's way better to have two girls sexually escalate around you than for you to actually escalate on the girl. Like if you haven't watched any of my videos by now, like that's my entire MO is I get two girls to make out with each other. Even if I'm pulling just one girl, I want to be the guy who's hands off. I want to be the guy, like I literally will tell two girls after they get making out with each other, or like a three-way makeout, I say, oh my God, this is perfect. Like this is awesome. Oh my God, like I just pretend like it's my first time I've ever done this. I'm like, this is amazing. Now granted, like I usually play like Viagra roulette like before I do these like threesome kind of things, so Viagra roulette is where you pop a Viagra before you go to the club. And you got about like, you got like an hour and a half to like, on purpose, or you got like an hour and a half to like 3 hours before you're like, fuck the no fap challenge, do the Viagra challenge, and watch how aggressive you'll be approaching. I'm gonna keep going to that stuff from open and close as well, but let's get a couple questions. Do you guys like that, by the way? I'm gonna tailor the talk to the audience. Do you guys like the fact that, like when I talk about getting those closes with very little effort, and then how I actually got those things to happen? Because one of those girls was a solid 9, one was an 8. There was like 2 8s and 1 9 in that Snapchat, and then there's like two 6s or whatever, right? Do you guys like hearing about how like I'm able to do that without actually putting much effort in and showing you guys to do it? Especially when I go to these pools, like it's so hot. I hate this fucking, like the heat, and then I didn't realize there was a place hotter than Vegas. It's called Scottsdale. You have like the humidity and the Vegas heat. It's crazy. You have perfect weather in my ass 10 months of the year. I'm dying out here. It's crazy. I mean, I suppose you get used to it or whatever, but I'm out there on this pool thing, right? I don't look good. Like it's my least attractive environment I could possibly be in. Is me at like a Vegas pool party right now. Right? I don't look like the male model days of my Facebook past, right? So I'm at this pool party. I'm wearing I was wearing like dress shoes, I think, too. No board shorts, right? So what do I do? Now, granted, I've built up a little social proof there, over time, but I've been there that was the 3rd time I've ever been to that pool. It's not like I go there all the time. Any one of you guys could have gone to Vegas in a 3-day weekend and done what I did. So start with the DJ booth. I only got the two. Okay, so the two girls, right? That was all. So yeah, I had the two girls first. I sat them in an empty cabana. All right, so also, you get used to high value areas, right? Get used to doing no minimum table areas. It's the same as if you got a drink at the bar, right? When I cracked that code, all of a sudden now I started fucking 8s like really, really regularly. And a bunch of like bottle rats, right? It's crazy how many girls will fuck you because you're sitting at the table and they don't even know that you're just ordering drinks with the waitress. What? You want to know something that's even crazier? Like anybody been to Vegas or Miami or New York, like a crazy bottle area, right, with super hot girls, or New York Fashion Week or whatever, right? Or even here, right? There's what's the bar? Blonde, Bottle Blonde. There's some hotties that go there, and this is a bit of a table area. It's about as bottle service, a cake, right? Cake's a pretty bottle service area, right? You can just go to any table and ask the waitress to make you a drink, and then she'll let you stand there as long as you're not being a prick until the drink comes, and she can be your personal bartender. That's kind of more epic than the table anyway. And who in here gets at least one drink when they go out to a club, right? Probably at least half of you guys, and if, right? You should be getting at least something, right? Go out less often, get at least one drink, and then do these techniques, and you get 4 times as many girls, right? Huh? Yeah. Arizona, you guys got to get some like good shit across the border, I'm sure, right? Here's the thing: if you're doing beast mode and you're closing 9s and 10s and girls that you're super excited about, don't change a damn thing. If that's what you enjoy, that's great. Because I like to do it once in a while. Like literally, when I say once in a while, I'm talking like once a week for my. Someone's getting a Hummer back there. The cold approach stuff, right? I do it with my students, especially my Vegas program, like every night, because I have to do it with them, right? So I get that in during that time period, right? And then about once a week, I'll go out without anybody, just myself, and then I'll go crush it cold approach as well. Because it's fun. It's like a super fun activity. I'm sorry, it's very validating, right? As much as we want to like beat the validation down, all this stuff, all I really need is a pretty girl to laugh at my jokes. Like I go out and I do my little, little routine stack. Not that, you have to have a routine, but you do your little things that you know work. You go to the whole deal, you run the whole show, run the circus. It's fun, it's very validating. That being said, what's more validating is fucking 4 to 8 girls a week that are my exact type of girl and having it be this like weird situation where it's more perfect than I ever thought it would be. What I mean by that is like the girls then want to stay. They want to like Netflix and chill then for the next week. To the point where sometimes I'll just stack the girls and I'll keep doing it. And like, I remember last summer, I had like 12 to like 14 girls. I have a photo of it somewhere, just back because each night I would go out and we would just do the same thing again, but the girls would just stay in and I would just keep collecting these girls, right? So like, yeah, that's a lot better than going out every night beast mode for sure. What did I technically do? I said one line. I looked at them, I said, get lit, right? I walk up and I go, get lit, right? Most of the guys I game with are black, so there's a 50-50 chance I said, nigga, get lit, right? Because the guys I game with say that I have a pass, so. Because it's like literally it's just this whole like I'm either nigga Luke or fam Luke, like that's like all the guys that I game with, that's like my nickname, right? So I walk up and I'm like, get lit. Like, what does that even mean? Get lit, like get fucked up, but like it's so broad at this point that it just means like you say that in a nightclub setting, like a girl walks past you, try this tonight, do that. It's better opener than anything you've probably been saying this week. Girl walks past you, look at her and go, get lit, fucking get lit. And she's gonna look at you and be like, yeah, get lit. Like she'll be like, let's get fucked up, right? It's crazy. It's amazing. It works so well. So then all of a sudden the bouncers were like, yeah, get lit. And I was just like, all right, get lit. And we just like back and forth. It was like the new age version of like the was up thing and right? And then I said, I really want one of those. And he goes, what? I go, the hat, you gotta give me one. He goes, okay. He pulled one from like sitting right there and put the hat on me. And I was like, in my head I was thinking, you'd have no idea what you just started with this hat. Like, that's awesome. Here's the thing, if you're already beast mode cold approaching, you're better off than a lot of the people that I talk to about this, right? You understand, if you're already doing all this effort, I'm telling you, hey, do 1/3 the effort, right? Still do the beast mode cold approach. Just don't do it to the point where you're like exhausted. Do this other stuff instead that is more real world pickup. When I say real world pickup, I mean it's what real people are doing to get results. No, like that's a good percentage of this is the Spectacle of Grandeur. I mean, I haven't actually read that book, but I've had a lot of books. I should read it. I heard it's amazing. I think he came out with a new version of it with 50 Cent too, right? Yeah, is that good too? Yeah, you like it? Yeah. I actually only knew about that one for a little while. And like one of my biggest mentors was like, don't tell me you only knew about the 50 Cent one. Come on. Like he actually has a really, it's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, my entire life is a spectacle of grandeur. Right? Like Aaron knows, like I'm either like quiet and on my phone because I'm like doing business, or I'm acting like a lunatic, like a nutcase. Right? But not in such a nutcase where like it's right to the borderline of me looking super uncalibrated. But it just clearly shows that there's nothing that I'm saying that I like haven't said before I'm not okay with, so then it's fine. So spectacle of grandeur, like anytime I go into a nightclub, I'm fully expecting to walk into that DJ booth. I'm fully expecting them to sit at a promoter table and sit down at that table. I'm fully expecting to pull one of the top 3. Like you have to be gregarious. Anybody know what gregarious means? But like a little more manipulative than that. Over the top, but like really asking for what you want, right? Audacity, over the top, but like it definitely has an implication that you're getting something out of it, right? Someone who's gregarious when he's gaming girls, he's not gonna stop asking girls to go home with him until he fucks, right? You're gregarious. You're going after what you want.